Hi, everyone. This is Megan.
And this is Steven.
And this is the Synchrony Podcast, where we talk about transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness in the church. Someday I want to do our intro like I'm just talking through it so you can't make the loud slurpy sip noise.
I mean, I don't want to annoy our listeners that much.
One day I want to do it like sort of like NPR style, like, hello, this is Megan. And this is the Synchrony Podcast, where we talk about transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness. And just like,
I feel like people would fall asleep at least 5 minutes faster if we did that.
yeah, maybe there's like a subliminal messaging dating culture rewrite thing we could do where it's like Synchrony ASMR that people play while they sleep that slowly transforms their dating outlook.
There's a sister at the church. I will not say her name. But she says, I love your podcast. It really helps me go to sleep at night. I was like, thanks. She goes, no. I love your voices. I was like, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
Damage is done.
No, no, it's fine. I like the idea of people relaxing into it. I really, you know what I really enjoyed when people talk about listening to it to work on Monday morning.
What?
I enjoy that people talk about. Okay, catch up. I enjoy that people talk about listening to work. I can't. Listening to our podcast on the way to work on Monday, because it's like that's so nice that they would want to start their week with that.
Yeah, that is
and
nice.
that makes me feel good because Monday mornings are the worst. And if we can do anything to make that slightly better, I feel like we're
recovered
helping.
That very well.
Thank you.
You were almost to the point where it was like you already said the punchline to a joke, and then someone's like, "Wait, what'd you say?"
Yeah, if we keep explaining it, I'm sure people will really think it's funny the longer it goes on. Oh, man. Do we have anything we need to talk about right up at the front announcement-wise, or can we save it all for the end? We don't have any sales going on right now, but keep an eye out for later on in the summer. We'll probably do another flash sale later. We're thinking about dates for that.
Yeah, I'm just excited for Max and Rhea.
We talked about them last week.
I know. I just want to say it again.
Okay.
We kind of knew it was coming for a while.
So let's just talk about some exciting, like developments, maybe just for a second. Can we do that?
Sure.
So I have purchased a substantial part of our first round of Synchrony wedding presents.
That's right.
I'm not going to say what it is because if you're one of our engaged couples and you're listening, I want it to be a surprise. But that's been really cool to think about, like, what would we want to gift these amazing couples as they're stepping into life together? And we have a couple that we're going to have to like retroactively send like a happy 6-month anniversary kind of a gift. So sorry to you guys because we weren't quite on top of it when they got married. But
well, we had the idea for some sort of wedding congratulations, like the very beginning of us doing Synchrony. But just us trying to get our feet underneath us running this business.
I didn't have an idea that I loved. I didn't want it to be something stupid or cheesy. So
our original plans were like really expensive. We're like, I don't know if that's sustainable.
Which, good problem to have. Like, with the number of weddings we're going to have this year, we have sort of a budget, which is amazing. Like, that's an incredible place to be in.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, so that's exciting. Other kind of like non-specific deliverables is that I'm in a big planning phase right now. I feel like we've done this sort of model for a little over a year in terms of how we go about our processes, and we're always iterating. We're always learning about what works and what doesn't for people. And so we've seen some great success over the last year in terms of people connecting with people and figuring out their values, and we've had some beautiful relationships start. But I do feel like we're dialing in on some tweaks that we could make that are going to help make the process way more valuable and successful for people.
Yeah.
So I won't go into it. This is like a teaser, I guess. We'll talk about that later, maybe when we have things nailed down. But I'm just feeling really optimistic about those changes. Like, I think we're heading in the right direction. And I think what we're looking to do now is sort of like, get the train to pick up speed, right? Like, we want to see people feel like they get a lot of value out of Synchrony early.
Yeah. And really get a lot of value out of Synchrony for, if you're waiting for us to match you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we don't want you just to get value out of finding, matches, which is obviously the goal.
Right.
But we want you to have more out of our resources that we can provide.
Yeah, we're hoping that people will wait less time and that their wait will be better
Mm-hmm.
as we go. So that's our goal. That's our aim right now. I haven't made a lot of plans around this topic. I just kind of wanted us to talk about it.
Okay.
So this came up, I think, recently. Can I be like kind of transparent with him about sort of like us and our lives for a second?
We'll see.
Yeah. Yes. We can always delete it. So you and I have both gone to therapy.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been seeing a therapist probably for the last 3 years, really.
Yeah.
Off and on. A little bit before then.
I
think.
thought it was before we even moved here.
Yeah, I did see a therapist for a little while.
We've been here for this August will be 5 years. So you've been
crazy.
seeing her for probably more than 5 years.
Well, I've seen different therapists in different
that's
places.
Right, that's right.
So yeah. My current therapist I started seeing after our son was born.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I've been in and out of therapy for a while. I found it tremendously valuable for helping me just understand myself better and make progress on goals that I was having a hard time bringing into like reality myself. Yeah. It's like having a helpful sounding board, You've recently entered therapy.
Yeah. I should have entered it a long time ago, but
yeah, it's it's sort of like the couples that like put each other through school. Like you've been sort of doing that for me, and now like you're going through it. But and I think we believe like in the value of that, right? But our perspective on why we seek out therapy is not because we think like we're a horribly dysfunctional or broken set of people. But we know that we brought stuff into our relationship and into our adult lives from our past.
Yeah.
That we've had to work on as adults.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
I don't think, like, when we got married, did you have the expectation that getting married was going to fix, like, the challenges that you were experiencing emotionally? Or I guess the topic I want to talk about is this idea that people seek out marriage to solve a problem or to cover up an issue. And my point is that we've found that our issues follow you into marriage, and you have to work on them, even ones that don't directly relate to your relationship as a couple. Did you expect that marriage would like fix things about you?
I'm sure there's a couple things that I could think about that I kind of expected just to go away. I don't think I consciously expected them to. Like it was something like, yes, I really hope that this is a subject that will go away once I get married. But I think I was probably trained to think that there are some topics that would just go away.
Yeah. I think I thought that having someone who loved me and who would marry me would make me never feel self-conscious again.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because I think I actually got more self-conscious and struggled more with my self-esteem after we got married.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
So I think that in some ways before we were married, I think was
it me? Did I make you more self-conscious?
Yeah, it was you. So the funny thing was like, it wasn't you doing something to me that made me more self-conscious, but it was the context of us being married,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
Where there was nowhere for me to hide, number one.
Yeah.
Like literally we lived in a 1-on-1 apartment. Like couldn't get away from you.
Me, you, and then 2 cats.
Yeah. And, but I think that, I had been sort of clinging to this idea that if I can just find someone who really loves me, right? If I can find my happily ever after and ride into the sunset with my prince, those feelings of not being enough and not being beautiful enough and whatever will just go away because I will have found someone who makes me feel beautiful all the time, right? And of course that doesn't happen because humans can't make other humans feel things.
Yeah.
We choose our own emotions.
Yeah.
Like that was a hard realization, I think, of our, young adult life. So I found that the self-esteem issues followed me. And I think part of the reason why they were so hard is because I was disappointed that they didn't leave. Like there was the reality that there was nothing coming to save me from that.
Yeah.
You and you were, very complimentary of me, very loving to me, and have always been. I never ever felt like you contributed to my self-esteem issues, but you didn't solve it. Being with someone who loved me and thought I was beautiful did not make me feel good in my body the way I thought it was going to.
I mean, again, we can take this out if we need to, but if anything, I think your insecurities got a lot more real
Mm.
for you because now it wasn't because some of the things that you were struggling with if we're talking about the same thing was like body image,
Yeah,
right?
that was huge.
That was a big one. Whereas before, an apostolic, not married, you were the only one that saw your body.
I don't know if it was so much about the fact that like you had access to my body in a way that other people hadn't. I think it was just more that one, I mean, honestly, we got married and I gained the freshman 15 in our first year of marriage.
Yeah, we both did.
Yeah. Cheers. My grandma calls that happy fat. It's like you're just happy. And your body just stocks it up. It's like, you know what, like, you know how like every fall, like I forget if it's the National Park Service or what, but they do, it might be like Yosemite. They do like a thing about bears, like the chunky bears. And
I have no idea.
oh my word, you're not on the internet enough, evidently. Okay, so every fall, I forget which group this is, which national park, but they start collecting pictures of bears pre-hibernation that are just like packing on the weight, right? And it's like chunky bears, right? And it's
Yeah.
like just finding the chunkiest bears in the wild they can find, and they have pictures, and you have to like vote on your favorite fat bear because the bears are just like happy as can be, and everyone's like, look at these bears, they are so cute, they're living their best life. And I'm like, I gained 15 pounds and wanted to just like jump off a cliff, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just funny. The bears look great when that happens to them. Anyway, I don't know how I got on that, but so I don't know that it was like that you had more access to my body, but I think my body was changing. And I think that the goal had kind of gone away, right? Like
Yeah.
I had been so focused on like staying attractive in the dating space, like I wanted, it was very important when I was young to be appealing, right? Because I was
Yeah.
looking for someone. I felt that pressure. And then, you know, we had the wedding. I was like, jogging and working out and stuff up into the wedding. We had the wedding. The wedding was over. And now it's like, oh, we have the next 60 years together.
Yeah.
My body suddenly gains a bunch of weight. It was the realization hit me that nobody was going to come fix that for me.
Yeah.
My body, my relationship with it, my feelings about my body, like there was no escape hatch, And I had been banking on our marriage as the escape hatch.
Yeah.
Like when I get there and I have someone who holds me and loves me and tells me that I'm beautiful, that will just vanish. And it turns out that was really, really baked into my mind in a way that I've had to work for the last 8 years, systematically work and talk and get counseling to kind of disentangle that from my brain.
Yeah. You've done a great job too.
Thank you. It's a work in progress. What about you? What were things that you sort of expected to just like go away that didn't go away?
Yeah. So something that I expected to actually completely just vanish was the idea that I was going to struggle with my flesh in a way that like when you're a young man in the apostolic faith who you try to save yourself for marriage and you try to run the good race, fight the good fight.
Mm-hmm.
And you're young, I was struggling with pornography.
Yeah.
I was accountable about it with people and I was really trying to work on it. And then I was like, okay, if I get married, this isn't going to be a problem anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that it actually still is.
Yeah, like your brain doesn't just stop lusting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost as if fallen sexuality is part of who we are as humans.
Yeah.
And marriage doesn't just take that away.
Yeah, and I was open with you about it. I think not enough people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like married people, I think and don't get me wrong, I understand why
Mm-hmm.
people don't talk about it because, there's certain things you have to keep private between you and your wife and your walk with God and your pastor. But like, it's one of those things, it's like, I fully expected that to be something that just kind of vanished.
It's so funny because I like that resonates with me, and I don't think I had the same like brand of challenges that you did sort of with lust and pornography or media or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I struggled with my own challenges with that in different forms. And I remember, this is so dumb to say it out loud now, but I remember thinking like, man, I really hope the rapture doesn't come before I get married. And part of that was I didn't want to miss out on the chance to be married. Like I was really pumped about
Oh,
of
sure.
having that. The other part of it was I didn't want to be living in sin, at any point, like caught,
Yeah.
in between my repentance moments, right? Because
Yeah.
wasn't fully walking in repentance about some of that stuff and didn't want to be like caught, like red-handed in the
Yeah.
midst of the rapture and be like, sorry, Lord, I just couldn't hold on till I got married. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had this idea that like, if I just grit my teeth and hold on and try my best to not, fall prey to all these things, I'll get married and it will just stop.
Yeah.
Like the lust part will just like end.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And
wild.
that's something that you constantly got to pray about. You gotta constantly be accountable to your wife about, and ideally have an accountability partner that you can also work with that um, is not your wife as well. Like ideally, for a man, have another man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure for a woman, have another woman.
Yeah.
And so that way, it's something that accountability is biblical. So
Yeah. I mean, I think like the other part of it too with this though in particular is just the idea that like marriage doesn't make you stop being human.
no, absolutely not.
And the things that we're talking about, like addictive behaviors or self esteem issues or whatever, like that's human brokenness that starts way before you are at an age where you could get married.
Yeah.
Those things always have an origin in the past. And I think a lot of it is just like we live in a fallen world. We're exposed to a lot of things. You don't have to have some kind of a tragic backstory in order to struggle, right?
Yeah.
But I think there are usually deep seated root causes for why we seek out the things we seek out and why we develop the mental pathways that we do. My issues with body image and self-esteem, which were tied, I think, to some things about like addictions to like sort of like romance and lust that went with that and all those things. Like, I think that all kind of came together and the roots of that were very, very old in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I had this idea that I would get married. I think it's another version of a fairy tale where like you get married and the fairy godmother like clicks her heels together and all of that just goes away, right?
Yeah.
Because that kind of stuff couldn't be part of your happy ever after. But like John Deloney always says, you go with you into your marriage. Like
Yeah.
the person,
The bricks in your backpack also come with you.
yeah, he uses
Yeah.
that metaphor. If you're not familiar, he talks about trauma or unhealthy influences being like bricks in a backpack that you carry, and people and circumstances might add bricks to your backpack over your life, and you have to work hard to set those bricks down, right?
And be intentional.
Right, to disentangle those from your life. So yeah, you enter into marriage the person that you were before you were married.
Yeah.
Like the state of marriage does not change who you are as an individual and what baggage you have.
Yeah. What are some other things that you think we subconsciously thought that we're going to be, or consciously thought we're going to be fixed as a result of marriage?
This one's kind of silly, but like I thought that when I had the chance to run my own home and to make my own schedule with someone and to like set up our life, that I would suddenly be good at that. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, like I would magically know and have an instinct about the right way to buy groceries for us and the right way to do it to run a home for us.
Oh, dude.
Despite the fact that I
still
had
struggle with this.
despite the fact that I had no data to suggest that I had any capacity to do that well from my chapter of living life alone as an adult.
My college mindset definitely I think I expected it to be better. Whereas like, how many bags of pizza rolls should I buy for the family?
Yeah, like when I think back to like I had this image in my mind, like I was going to become a married woman, and I would suddenly embody what that meant, which was
A homemaker.
A homemaker, yeah. Like I would suddenly become talented at folding decorative towels in creative ways, right?
I never imagined how many pairs of socks that were going to lose their pairs.
Yeah, like, or just the fact that we have struggled for 8 years to do laundry.
Yeah.
I mean, you have made more headway in this year on our laundry problem than our church laughs at us about this because
Oh yeah.
we stood up at a marriage retreat like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Dear Young Married Couple had a marriage conference at our
yeah, so
church.
Adam and Carissa were like, they asked for volunteers and Steven volunteers for everything.
Yeah.
So Steven, of course, like,
And
I was like,
I honestly volunteer when it's a couples thing.
huh.
I volunteer mainly because I know how much he doesn't like volunteering.
Right. So he pulls me up to the front and they're like, okay, pick a fight that you guys have had. And I'm like, laundry.
Well, it was Dead Zone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was the dead zone. The dead zone is the pile of laundry that is not dirty, but is not clean. That forms similar to the Great Atlantic trash pile that's like floating around in the middle
Yeah.
of the ocean. That's just untethered. It's
Yeah.
sort of that, but all along it frames your corner of the bed.
Yeah,
Like
my
it's
side of
that.
the bed. Yeah. It's the
It's
clothes you take off like after you've taken a shower or you've
yeah.
worn them for the day and haven't like done anything in
It's like
them.
not your sweaty work clothes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like your non-sweaty day clothes
Yeah.
that could technically be worn
Or
again.
like the pajama pants that you've already worn, so you technically shouldn't put them back in the
Yeah, but
drawer,
why
but
the floor? Because then they just get trampled by our children and
well,
like
it's gotten
our
better.
dog. Yeah. So anyway, this was the fight that we
Yeah.
pulled up. So we have been struggling with our laundry from day zero.
Oh yeah.
Like, and
Well, let's be honest. We've been struggling with laundry our whole life.
that's the thing. We didn't just become married and suddenly know how
I
to be
think we both
married.
hoped that we both would be good at one of us would be good
Oh,
at
that
laundry.
yeah. One of us hoped that the other one was going to show up with all the organizational capacity in the world, and turns out we got two ADHD like slobs.
Yeah.
Like,
Laundry has been the bane of our existence. Like I have
yeah,
dreamed about those washer machines that you can also put your clothes into a separate machine that also folds it.
yeah. Oh no, I'm waiting for the Star Trek future where you just stick your clothes into the replicator, and the replicator disarticulates them into their composite molecules, and then spits back out new clothes on demand. That's what I want
Yeah.
in the future. We got like we're getting closer because we do have a combo washer dryer that does
Yeah.
it
It
one
washes and then dries,
yeah at the same time, which is pretty great.
which has honestly saved many loads of unwashed laundry or washed laundry that we forgot in there.
And had to wash again. Yeah. So there are just things that I think I had expectations about. So here's what it boils down to. I expected marriage to transform me.
Yeah.
Like just the state of being married, going from unmarried to married, to be a transformation.
Yeah.
Did you expect that of yourself?
I think I expected myself to. It's funny. It's unrealistic. I think I expected myself to adapt to being married
Mm.
and working on the things that I was bad at without actually having ever worked on them.
Ooh, ooh, yeah, that's good. Because I think we did acknowledge, I think even in our wedding vows, we talked about like being with you is going to change me, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
not in the ways that I wanted.
Some of the ways.
Some of the ways.
Okay, let's be honest. We can't throw the whole baby out with the bathwater.
No, yeah, we've made. I mean, like, I'm very happy with like the
Yeah.
changes that have come. But what I mean by that is like the mechanisms
Yeah.
that it took to change us. I did not sign up for,
Yeah,
Like-
it was a longer process than we expected.
and it wasn't longer because of you.
Yeah,
It was longer because I had not reckoned with the parts of me that I was unhappy with.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's the part that I think messed with my mind. Is I thought that getting married was going to be about like you affecting me and you transforming me, right, actively. And what it was just living with you brought up stuff in me that I had not paid attention to.
yeah,
You know?
vice versa.
Yeah, like it brought stuff to the surface, insecurities and anxieties and struggles and frustrations that had just been latent my whole life. And it's like, I think that marriage is something that God uses to polish people because we draw out of each other the things that need to be like buffed away. You know what I mean?
And things come to light whenever you get married to someone who also has similar struggles,
Yeah.
because now it's just exacerbated because of how big it is blatantly obvious that we both struggle in this area.
Well, and like, so Terry Real, who, if you haven't read Terry Real, go find him. He's brilliant. He's a psychiatrist, I think, and a therapist. And talks a lot about marriage. And the way he frames it is beautiful, but he talks about how you marry your unfinished business.
Oh, yeah.
And he says the beauty and the mysticism of marriage is that you marry someone often through, and he doesn't try to prescribe a way that this happens. He says we just seem to be drawn to people who will allow us to reenact over and over the things that have hurt us and that have damaged us, right? And it gives us this new theater kind of to engage with those issues and rewrite the story,
Yeah.
right? And when we talk about doing things like going to a therapist and breaking cycles and all the buzzwords that are talked about nowadays, a lot of that is understanding how your story was written so that you can choose to write your story differently with the person who might remind you very much of all the things that you struggled with.
Yeah. I really like the way you said that.
Yeah. I mean, I stole it from him, but yeah.
No, I know. I don't know how you remember things that you read like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. I can remember that, but I have a really hard time remembering where I put my keys. So
Yeah.
it's like six and a half dozen the other. I
Yeah.
also can never remember righty tighty lefty loosey when I'm trying to screw something in.
Anything that has to do with right and left is something you struggle
We're
with.
good at very different things, babe.
Yes, we are. And you're great at the things that you're great at.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But
Just
yeah.
don't ask her for directions.
Oh my gosh, I had to call 911 today. I didn't tell you this.
What?
Not for me. Sorry. I had to call. Okay, I'm going to tell the story because it's just so iconic to who we are. I really hope the people that I had to call this about were okay. So I was coming home from Walmart, right, or from that area. And when I was turning out of the intersection, I looked the other way and there was like a 3-car pileup right down the road.
Okay.
And it looked like it had just happened. Like it was the opposite direction that I was headed, but cars were in the median. People were pulling over right then, getting out of the cars. It looked like it had just happened, like fresh. And I'm on like a 4-lane big road at that point, so I couldn't like do a U-turn or anything, and I didn't want to go back and just create more mess, but I was like, I'll call it in since I thought it had just happened.
Sure.
So I'm driving and I call 911 and I have to tell this sweet angelic dispatcher how to get to the accident that I just saw, and there's no landmarks, right? So I'm like, okay, I said it is north of Walmart on 441, which is accurate.
That is accurate.
Right. And I said, I'm driving south. It's north and they're in the median, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, so do you mean this road? And I'm like I'd only prepared one set of directions in my head. I'm like, listen, I'm the worst with directions. It is north of Walmart on 441. Like I'm trying to and she's like, she finally figured it out. Like she could figure it out and did a very good job of triangulating from my really bad directions of where this was.
At that point, she probably just GPS pinned your phone.
She did. I mean, she did that originally. And I'm like, I'm driving away from it. You've got to backtrack or whatever. So she figured it out and she was incredible. In like 2 minutes, she pinpointed where it was. Yeah. So God bless you, amazing dispatcher. I hope that everyone who was involved in the accident was okay. But yeah, it was just
your worst nightmare.
Yeah, I'm like,
ask for more directions.
I'm like, lives depend potentially on my ability to give someone directions right now, and not good at it.
You did great, babe.
Thank you. Hopefully they got the help they needed. Anyway, what were we talking about before? You made fun of me about directions. I guess the takeaway is like, so like you follow you, right? Like you bring yourself into your marriage.
It's true. What would you have done differently? Or if you could talk to your younger self, what would you say?
I mean, I would have started unpacking my baggage earlier.
Yeah.
And to be fair to my younger self, I don't know that I had the language and the resources to do that before we got married.
I don't think either of us did.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really didn't have the space to go to therapy until we got married. I mean,
and also the insurance.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I was in grad school. You know what I mean? Like, there just wasn't time or space, and so, but I think I would go back and understand that, like, there were that the expectations that I had weren't going to be realistic, you know, that like my feelings about myself weren't going to dramatically change.
Yeah.
Because I think I was self-aware enough at the time to understand that my outlook wasn't healthy. I just didn't have a plan. My only plan was marry you and feel better, right?
Yeah.
Like get married directly corresponds to being happy, right? And I really thought that marriage, even though like by the time we got married, I had had kind of my revelation of like, okay, marriage is not about happiness, right? Like marriage is not about you making me happy. It's about me choosing joy and finding someone with whom that's easy. I wish I had had that revelation years before, because that would have given me the space to understand, okay, well, what do I need to know about myself in order to seek out that happiness? What do I need to work on in order to be quick to joy in my future relationships? And I was really grateful that like we had had time to talk about those things and kind of process them together. So I felt like we had a better jumping off point for that than a lot of couples did.
Yeah.
Like I did not go into my marriage necessarily expecting you to be my full source of happiness, right?
Yeah.
But I did
Thank
expect,
God.
thank God, that first
That would have been really
moving
disappointing.
into the apartment and seeing all the bags of
Yeah.
fast food and the giant TV would have really put a dent. No, but like I think that like I wish that I had had more time with that understanding,
Yeah.
so that when we got married, I would have come into it with more of a to-do list. Like I think that people should think about their marriage as like a gym, right?
Yeah. You just
Where
scared a lot of people.
right. A nice healthy gym where no one stares at you and takes weird videos in the mirror. But like in the sense that like it's going to be a place where you exercise the skill sets that you've already developed and where they're challenged, right? And the more strength that you build up in your own sense of self, in your emotional intelligence, in your communication, like those things are going to be stretched and pushed to their limit in your marriage. It's a training ground for that. It's not an instantaneous transformation. The Bible says tribulation worketh patience, right? Like
Yeah.
it's gonna build it into you over time. And so I wish I had done more. It's sort of like I wish I'd done more conditioning before I tried to do a 20-mile hike. Like
Yeah.
I wish I had taken more time and been more intentional with my conditioning before we got married.
I feel like this is, and if Brad ever hears this, he will completely understand.
We love you, Brad.
Huh?
I said we love you, Brad.
Yeah, I love you, Brad. So this, Brad and I really, we were young, we were athletic. We could, if we put our minds to it, we could, in our minds, we could do anything, right?
Yeah, you guys were on top of the world.
Yeah. And so Brad and I talked about doing an Ironman. Never having done a full marathon.
Tell the people who might not know what an Ironman is.
So the Ironman is a triathlon.
Mhm.
In terms of like athletic accomplishment, it's like the top of the leaderboards
Sure.
for most people, right? So it's a, if I remember correctly, it's a 26-mile marathon, so a full marathon. It is a 12 mile, I think I said, ish, bike ride,
Mhm.
and a 2.4 mile swim, like consecutively. It's not like separate days. Like
Mhm.
you start one, and as soon as you get done with one, you continue. You start the next, and it's this like full thing. We wanted to train for it. Well, we started like, I think, a year training for it before we got married.
Mhm.
And we're like, yes, let's do this. Well, we got into getting our own road bikes. We wanted to really start getting into it.
Mhm.
It was this whole thing. And the reason why I even brought up the story is because this is kind of how I think I expected marriage to go, right? Or I expected marriage to go differently than how it went. But me and Brad went on our first long bike ride on our new road bikes. Right, we had our gear, we had our clicking shoes, we were ready to go. We looked like the people that everyone wants to hit with their cars. It's true. Even as a road biker, I it's annoying them being in the road. We did not do enough research on what to eat. We
Mhm.
used our logic. We were both in nursing school, so we thought we knew better. And so we brought like sliced apples. We brought all this different fruit. We brought nothing but water. We're like, we're going to be the most healthy people on the road. So we start by doing a 54-mile ride. And it is a terribly long ride. So we get to the about right before the halfway point, about mile 25, 26, and we are gassing out. Like we have nothing left in us. We've been eating our fruits. We've been stopping. We've been trying to like stay ahead of our caloric deficit and all this other stuff. And we are like, what is going on? So we turn around and it's really the ride back that was miserable. The only thing that motivated me was that day I had to leave to go to someone's wedding and carpool with people. So that was the only thing that motivated me to keep on going. It was terrible. And so we ended up running into someone later at a sports store. We ended up running into someone who had done like 13 Ironmans. And he was like, and so we asked him, we're like, well, what do you eat? Because we did terrible. We gassed out. He goes, oh, I eat candy bars. He's like, I eat candy bars and drink soda the whole time. And he's like, I bring water with me. He's like, we're like, what?
Yeah.
So basically, the moral of the story is I went into marriage expecting it to be one way and thinking I had all the tools in my toolkit when really sometimes life is a little different.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen differently, and you're going to have different solutions for different problems than you ever expected. So it was one, don't try an Ironman.
Unless you are already running marathons.
Unless you are already fully conditioned for
Yeah.
one of those three massive events.
Yeah. Yeah. And so extrapolating out from our own story a little bit, because I do think that like we were one of the lucky ones. Like I think we got into our marriage with a more realistic than average understanding of what was going to like what it was going to be like, right?
Yeah.
I've talked to people through Synchrony who have returned to singleness after being married, right? Who have had to reckon with the fact that they went into their marriage with no realistic understanding of what to expect. And I've heard people say, you know, like more than once I've heard someone say like, I was married to a great person, but I had a lot of trauma and they had a lot of trauma. And we both grew up in hard environments and we really didn't know what to expect of each other. And we had poor communication and it led to X, Y, and Z thing, right? And that's not usually it by itself what causes the breakdown of the marriage. It's usually we had challenges that led to isolation and poor communication, and then one of us, you know, went into addiction, right? Or one of us started to get into an extramarital relationship. And it's like it's these little cracks that you don't acknowledge and that you don't know how to deal with that end up spreading into larger fissures in your relationship, you know, over time. And so the reason why I'm talking about this now to like a group of singles, because the people that are listening to us are the vast majority of you are not married yet.
Yeah.
Is because I want people to have an understanding that we are not trying to connect you with someone who is going to make all the bad things go away.
110%.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like how you feel about yourself now is how you will feel about yourself when you are married.
Yeah.
The addictions that you are struggling with now will continue to be addictions in your marriage unless you start to take steps to address them. And I don't want anyone to hear that and go like, oh, I can't get married until I'm whole.
No, absolutely not. We just don't want you going into marriage expecting your partner to fix you.
That's the thing. This is about saddling your future partner with unrealistic expectations of what they'll do for you, because it is not within the capacity of a human's power to transform you.
No.
And the state of marriage, like just, you know, saying I do, putting on a ring if you're into that, and changing your name if you're a lady or whatever, like, you know, carrying someone over a threshold, that is not enough to transform you. Like, you have to go back to the wheel and be kneaded like clay and go through all those processes. Your spouse is not going to be the thing that does that. Your spouse is the context. They are the training ground. They are the gym. They are the space that in which God begins to do the work. But they are not what does it. And you can't hold on to this hope that like, if I can just make it to marriage everything will be different. No,
Yeah.
if you can make it to marriage, you'll have somebody else to work on it with you. And the goal of synchrony is to put you with someone who is ready to help you do that work by supporting you and by enabling you to understand what you need and by communicating with you and by loving and serving you, not because they have the capacity to fix you or change you.
Yeah. No, I think that is so, so important to recognize. And so that's something I think if I could tell my younger self to recognize this point, right?
Mm.
And again, I don't think I had unrealistic expectations out of you in our what marriage as a whole was going to do. If I had one thing that my younger self could get out of this is
Mm.
that to give myself permission to change my prayers,
Hmm.
right? On not finding someone that can complete me, right?
Mm.
But finding someone that can work alongside me when we find struggles. New struggles are not necessarily new struggles. When we find struggles that have been there the whole time, but that become identified as a result of marriage,
Yeah.
that we can work together hand in hand, side by side, yoke together,
Mm.
and try to work through the process together.
You said something so good there, which is like, I am not what makes you whole, right? And vice versa. So that we have this idea that of people who complete each other, and in some ways that's like a Greco-Roman idea. Like we think
Yeah,
we talked
sure.
about the myth that the Greek myth where humans originally were a two-sided, double-faced creature made up of sort of two individual minds, and then Zeus or I don't know someone like split them apart, and the purpose of finding a soulmate was to find their other half. Do we talk about this?
Oh gosh, no,
No,
but
this is
that's terrible.
it's terrible, and it's a Greek myth.
Yeah.
The idea that humans were, and I don't know if it's actually truly Greek mythology or if this just is an idea that evolved and people are like, I think the Greeks came up with it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's this thing that's been passed around for a long time that this idea is like that this one being was split apart into two people and you have to go find your other half, right?
Yeah.
Which we've already debunked the idea of having another half or having a soulmate. But I think it sticks with us, this idea that I will find someone who completes me,
Yeah.
who makes up for the gaps, who fills in the cracks, right? And that's not true. Like if you find someone who complements your strengths, or helps, I do think we complement each other in the sense that you're strong in some places where I'm weak, like directions, and vice versa. But
Yeah.
you don't fix me,
Yeah.
right? Being around you has not made me good at telling directions.
Yeah.
Um,
Luckily, you married someone who is good at telling directions, though.
yeah, so I'm not going to get lost in the forest probably and eaten by one of those chonky bears. But see how it all ties together?
Yeah, there you go.
But I do think that like,
Chunky Yogi.
yeah, you're like being with you does not fix my flaws. It gives me a lens through which to see them,
Yes.
right? And then it's up to me to go do the work and to pray and to partner with great counselors and people that can coach me on that,
Yeah.
right? And to talk to you about it.
Well, yeah, and we give each other grace when we recognize these areas that we need to work on, but also give each other space to work on them,
And
right?
support, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can't fix you, but I'm going to give you the space to do the work you have to do with your counselor and with your mentors and like
Yeah.
doing things like, you having coffee dates with your accountability partner.
Yes.
Like that's something that we prioritize,
Yeah.
right? Or you making sure that you watch the kids so I can see my therapist. Like,
Yeah, like logistically, what that means is like you have to take on more of a burden during that time to give me the space to go hang out with my accountability partner.
yeah.
Right. And vice versa. So like and if you were not understanding in that area and also prioritize it alongside me, then that would be extremely difficult for that to be a priority in my life.
Yeah. So like it's something where having each other as a mirror, as a lens to help us identify these things has given us the language and the ability to support each other.
Yeah.
In our individual efforts to get better, right? Because you're not going to fix my self-esteem, but I can work on that with the help of God and great people.
Yeah.
And you've supported me in that. And I think that's the takeaway. So like, I guess what I want our singles to hear is that if you are waiting to address an area of your life that you are not happy with, right? If you're waiting to address your health Or, I've heard people tell me like, I'm not very healthy and I really want to marry someone who will help me get healthier.
Yeah, that's not going to happen
It's
that
not
way.
going to happen. If you don't have a
And
core,
honestly, sorry,
uh
if that's the case, that's signing yourself up for a very potentially unhappy
yeah,
marriage.
because it's a values misalignment,
Yes.
right? If you don't value health now, how are you going to connect with someone who has health and wellness as a core value of theirs,
Yes.
right? So,
Well, that, and also if you expect that person to help fix you in
mhm,
that area, but you don't already prioritize that,
right,
what happens is it's going to turn into that person nagging you
right,
to do something that you don't already want to do.
right.
And then it's going to be a contention in your marriage potentially.
Yeah, probably. So if you are waiting to address things until you are married because you think that when you get married you'll have the time, the space, the help. If you're a single parent and you're like, I can't deal with this until I have another set of hands in this house, like we're compassionate toward that outlook, but it's probably not going to work that way.
Yeah.
Adding another person into your life is not going to provide you with all that additional bandwidth. You've just got to learn how to live with another person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's going to require some of that bandwidth
Yeah.
because you're going to have to walk around their dead zone and hope that you don't trip and break your neck in the middle of the night.
Hey, walking on my dead zone's fine. Stepping on your high heels or your random shoes around the house, that's painful.
Okay. Well,
Ma'am.
we're not going to get into a fight because you leave your massive clown boat shoes lying around all over the place too, which is like
Yeah, but mine
walking.
don't hurt when you step on them.
It does if you walk into them like a brick. They weigh like 35 pounds.
Yeah, the touche.
Okay. Anyway, so the takeaway here is if you are waiting to address something in your life, stop waiting.
Yes.
Your spouse is not going to fix that for you. Ideally, we can find you someone who is going to be a great partner in your efforts to address those things.
Yeah.
Who's going to get on board with you and cheer you on as you work through those things. But ask for the help that you need now. I'm not saying you have to do it alone. We can't do it alone.
Mm-mm.
Healing comes from community, I think, with people. Like you have to be, and especially you have to be in tune with the body of Christ, right? Like we heal as a body, we restore each other, through the Holy Ghost and through the operating of the gifts and the fruits of the Spirit. Like the church is a unit of healing. So go ask for the help that you need to address the things that you're waiting to address, whether that's your health or an addiction or a challenge with your emotions or with your sense of self. There is no better time than now to address those things. The best time was yesterday.
Yeah.
The second best time is today, and you don't have to have that work done before you're married, but you really want to have a good head start on it.
Yeah. So another thing I want to add to that, though,
Mm.
everything you just said was great, but what about the people who are saying, well, what if I don't have a way to identify the things I need to work on?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these things that we're talking about, we didn't identify until after we were married.
Yeah.
And so we didn't understand what was important until we ran into it like a brick wall.
Yeah.
So I think a good place to start is one, start working on the mindset of growth, right?
Yeah.
It's the 1% rule, right?
Cultivate the idea that you can change.
Yeah. I heard someone say something, and it was probably some YouTube video or something, that says if you try to improve yourself 1% a day,
Mm-hmm.
one, that's a very attainable goal. And two, over the course of time, think about over the course of the year, right?
Yeah.
You are, even if you skip a couple days, right? You're still increasing the amount that you're trying to change and work on yourself by hundreds of percent throughout the year.
300% change is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, that's insane. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about, but it's also an attainable goal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of those things is adapting the mindset of like critical thinking of saying, hey, what areas of my life might I be applying this same concept that we've talked about here today?
Right.
But two, find someone who's close to you, who's really close to you and who knows you really well. And say, hey, do you see some parts of me that might be a weak point for me that maybe I haven't given you the freedom to call out?
Or I like that idea, but I also say, or if you have the resources to do it, hire a coach. And by that,
Oh, sure.
and the reason why I say that is because sometimes even our friends who love us, sometimes we gravitate toward people who are permissive to our behaviors, right?
Sure, but I also like, let's be honest though. We
Mhm.
have friends that are permissive to our behaviors and give us grace, but also know how to identify areas that we need to work on, but
Yeah,
we just
and
love
if
each other enough to not care.
right, if you have a wise and thoughtful friend who's going to give you great insight, then yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a friend who is about as self-aware as a ham
Goldfish.
sandwich, yeah, and it's just just doing life, they're cool, then maybe not them, right?
Yeah.
You can also go seek out professional advice from someone on this because there are people that are trained to elicit those things from you,
Yes.
right? Hey, I hear that you want to work on some growth, let's make some goals. They've got frameworks to just help you, basically to ask the right questions to help
Yes.
you get at what you want to change.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a lot of this is really a process of self-reflection. If you are a kind of introspective person, you might be able to do this with some journaling exercises where you go kind of sit and go what are the areas of my life that I'm not content with, right? Areas that I feel like I've been ignoring. What's the root cause of why those things are there? Ask the 5 whys. We talked about that a couple episodes ago. Dig into what those are. And maybe through that you find some actionable things that you want to work on, and you partner with someone who's skilled in those things. My point is, what we're describing is a process. It's not an instantaneous
No.
transformation. Everyone's going to maybe have a slightly different approach to how you get to the answers of what needs to happen. But I just want people to be encouraged that that's something you can start doing well before you're married.
Yeah.
And even if that's very much still a work in progress, you having those goals and having set those goalposts for yourself is going to make the trajectory of your marriage so much clearer.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, one, I want to reiterate the thing that we think is most important is adopting the mindset of reflection, right? And saying, what are some areas that I could work on? That being said, you do not have to be completely whole before you get married.
No, you won't be.
No, no one is. You will go into marriage even if you are super introspective and you have started work on all these things we've talked about. You're gonna go into marriage and find a dozen other things that you realize that weren't there.
Yeah.
Which is
Marriage.
okay if you've adopted the mindset of, hey, how can we work on this together?
Right. Marriage is a gem,
Yeah.
right? If you know, if you could be completely and stay completely fit without working out, nobody would go to the gym,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
If you could have a perfect body and never lift a weight, you would not have to go to the gym. But the fact is, in order to be a healthy person, identify these things, work on them, and maintain those things, you need the training ground. And marriage is that for a lot of these things we're talking about. It's a tool in the hand of God that he uses to polish us. And if you submit yourself to the process of really engaging with that and working on yourself in that context, it's huge.
Yeah.
But your spouse is not the agent of change. And the legal piece of paper that you sign when you get married is not the agent of change, right?
Yeah.
You don't become Mr. and Mrs. and suddenly you reach self-actualization or whatever.
Yeah.
So we kind of went through a bunch of different little topics there, but I felt like this was a good reminder just to I don't want to say don't waste this time or all the things that people tell singles about how to utilize their singleness, because I think that's just dismissive of the fact that this time is really hard, right?
Yeah.
And painful sometimes for people.
But we just want to make sure that people have a realistic expectation before going into marriage.
Yeah, and understand.
And honestly, finding a partner,
even with your dating, right? It changes your expectations of what someone has to be bringing to the table. You know?
I think we both unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, but not to the extent that we expected it was going to impact us. We're looking for a partner that would help us in these areas.
Yeah.
So it worked out in our favor. But I also know that there are some people out there that don't know to look for something like this, right? To look for someone who is willing to communicate and work on things like this together.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Any announcements?
Singles at Sea.
Whoop.
Book it now. If you haven't heard about it, we're going on a cruise next February 2026. It's going to be an absolute blast. We already have a good chunk of people that are signed up to go, so I'm super excited.
Yeah, we are pumped.
Yeah. The theme that our co-sponsor really wants to aim for is comedy and connection. So we're going to go and laugh and hang out and build friendships, build connections, hopefully introduce people to some potential dating prospects if it all
That's
works
right.
out. That's the goal. So it's going to be really fun. Look in the description for Chelsea's information. She is our cruise coordinator, and you can call her and put down a deposit. It only takes $200 to reserve your cabin. If you want to come with a friend, then you only need to both put up $100 to get that cabin reserved, and then you can pay against the total cost of the cruise between now and when we leave. So check that out. If you need a roommate, you don't have someone that you want to go with on the cruise and you want someone to partner with you on that, then come to the Singles at Sea Facebook page where we will be helping people connect with each other.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to the day when we can drop off the kids at school and do podcasts first thing in the day.
Can you imagine how much more like cohesive our podcast will be?
At least 5% more cohesive.
Yeah, probably less banter about bears.
Yeah, fat bears.
Yeah.
Chubby bears.
To quote The Office, Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Every time you said chubby bears, for some reason, I was thinking Yogi. He was not really a chubby bear. I was like, hey, boo boo.
He wasn't a not chubby bear.
That's true. He did have kind of a dad bod.
Goals.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Are we done?
Probably not, but we should probably go.
Okay. I love you.
I love you too.
Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye.